It's here. It's time for Duke in North Carolina, but hang on. A couple months till that one. It's time to do it football style.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Friday, November 21st. Welcome into this Locked On College Crossover edition with Locked On Blue Devils, Locked On Tar Heels, where we're getting ready for a big-time football showdown inside Kenan Stadium on Saturday afternoon. We want to thank you for joining us at the place to get your Blue Devils and Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. JJ, the #1 sports podcast network in the entire Milky Way galaxy. It's great stuff. We want to thank you for making us your first listener watch on this Friday to move into the weekend in a good way. Special shout out to all of the everydayers who have joined us here today. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, for those of you who are Blue Devils fans, my name is Isaac Schade. I'm the host of Locked On Tar Heels. For you Tar Heels fans, this is JJ Jackson, the great host of Locked On Blue Devils, and we are elated to be with you on this Friday as we have two teams searching for bowl eligibility. One of these teams a lot closer to it than the other. Here's where we're headed on the show today. We're going to look at each team, and then we'll make some storylines, some predictions, all that. We're going to start with the Blue Devils angle. And JJ, I just mentioned it, but Duke comes into this game 5-5 overall, 4-2 in the ACC. A little frustrated, I got to imagine, having lost 3 of 4, the game at UConn and the game home against Virginia, which, you know, I just were kind of shocking to me, right? Looking at it from afar. Could you lay out, JJ, like what happened in those games?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we're going to be thinking about for a really long time in regards to Duke football, because you felt like maybe, just maybe, Duke could be on their way to winning their first ACC championship since 1989. It's been a really long time since the football team has been in that position, but turnovers have been the biggest issue for Duke so far in losses this season. Beyond the hunt for ACC titles, Duke should be in position to have already won or clinched a bowl game opportunity, but they went 1-3 in non-conference play. If you told anybody after Duke won 9 games a season ago under head coach Manny Diaz that they would go 1-3 in non-conference, that included losses to like UConn, and I know Tulane is making a lot of noise in the group of 5 realm, and they're certainly vying for a college football playoff opportunity, but that Darian Mensah against his former team would lose against Tulane in a game like that, I don't know that many people would have predicted something like that. But in those games, the Duke offense has moved the football quite well. It's been one of the top offenses in the entire conference all season long. It's just, Isaac, they don't hold on to the football when it matters most, and that has cost them more times than it hasn't.
You know, JJ, you talk about Duke, and let's be honest, it's not been a great football season for the Triangle in totality here. I think we're all just like holding on to basketball season because it's great to see Duke, Carolina, and even NC State entering the chat now, and so that's great. But we got a couple more football games to wrap up. JJ, I talked about it on my full Tar Heels show for Friday as well, that Darian Mensah, you just mentioned him, best quarterback Carolina will see all season. What is it that makes him so special? And I guess maybe this is the time to look at your players to watch for the Duke Blue Devils, because I know he's one of the ones you are keeping your eye on.
No doubt. He absolutely is. The quarterback spot, we mentioned it a second ago, the transfer from Tulane, reportedly a 2-year deal that he signed with Duke worth $7 million, which is unbelievable that Duke ponied up and paid that. It's the most expensive quarterback acquisition, which quarterback acquisition in our college football terminology, I'm still not quite used to, Isaac, but that's the case that we're at here today. Mensah just has an ability to hit a variety of different targets. It's been different guys each and every week. The steady guy at the top has been Cooper Barkate, who's another one of my players to watch, a Harvard grad who's now playing football for Duke. So he'll walk into the next stages of life, post-playing career, with a degree from Harvard and a degree from Duke. Not too shabby for Mr. Cooper Barkate. But Mensah's ability to extend plays, throw it accurately, I think is by far the most impressive. And his decision-making, for the most part, has been great too. It wasn't until this past game against Virginia that he threw for fewer than 250 yards. 216 yards passing is the fewest amount of passing yards that Darian Mensah has had all season long. I'm really surprised by that, man. That it's great to see. It's like worth the investment that you made there, that Duke has this quarterback that we're talking about that's been so productive.
Man, JJ, it's great to hear. It's tough to think about from the Carolina side of things. But I know, for Carolina, obviously we'll talk more about them in a second, but it's the defense where you feel like they have a better shot at this game. So I think it's a little bit of strength on strength there. Tell us about Mr. VJ Anthony, your other player to watch in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we give the offensive some love because they what's that old saying that they sell tickets and defense wins the championships with the plays that they make. And VJ Anthony's a big reason why. Coming off the edge, wearing jersey number 7, a local kid that's playing really well for the Duke team, gets after the quarterback with the best of them, and certainly somebody that I think North Carolina's got to be aware of where he's lining up before the snap. He's not afraid to stand up as an outside edge rusher. He can also put his hand in the dirt and be versatile in that regard. But Vincent Anthony Jr., otherwise known as VJ, is definitely a player that we've heard called a ton throughout the course of this season. And going into Saturday's game between Duke and UNC, I think VJ Anthony's setting himself up to have a really impressive game.
JJ, you talked about the turnover issues that have plagued Duke recently. Is that coming from Darian Mensah? Where do you see like the root of those turnover issues?
Yeah, unfortunately, it has been from Mensah, mostly in regards to protecting the football from the pass rushers. Like his decisions in regards to throwing interceptions really hasn't been the biggest issue for him. It's getting out of the pocket and holding on to the football securely, because these defenders are so skilled at swatting after the football and doing all they can possible to come up with a takeaway and that sort of thing. I mean, you look at Mensah's numbers on the season here at that quarterback spot, Isaac, to have 356 passing attempts and only 4 interceptions is really good. To think, he takes care of the ball in that regard. He's not throwing it into harm's way. The problem, turnovers-wise, has mainly been him holding on to the football when he gets sacked, when the pressure's there, or when he starts to run a little bit.
JJ, you talked about VJ Anthony, but when you look at the defensive side of the football, I know that Duke is one of the bottom teams in the conference in terms of total yards allowed per game. Thankfully for Duke, though, North Carolina is putrid, I think, putting it kindly, offensively. What does Duke need to do in totality as a defense to slow down an already slow North Carolina offensive unit?
Yeah, I think it's the quarterback position, like we talk about, right? Like making it as comfortable as possible and force North Carolina to, run the ball in some respects because of the great pass rush that Duke has displayed so far this season. VJ Anthony's already got 6.5 sacks on the season, such a big leader on that front for Duke. I think if you can make life really uncomfortable for the quarterback, and you want to run the ball, North Carolina and certain teams haven't had as much success on the ground. And so we'll find ways to beat you in other respects. So if you can get after the quarterback, I think would be kind of that number one point that I'd be drilling home if I was in Manny Diaz's defensive meetings.
You know what? I would be doing the same thing, JJ. I think that would be very smart. All right. Speaking of that North Carolina offense, are they going to have anything to show in Kenan Stadium on Saturday? That's where we got to go next. We're going to let JJ get off the hot seat. We're going to put that lamp on me, and we'll see what's going to happen coming up next as we talk about the Tar Heels. Right after I tell you about our friends at Game Time. You guys, college football is back. And JJ and I could not be more excited. Tailgates, the rivalries, energy in the stands, y'all, there is absolutely nothing like it, especially in a rivalry week like this. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the actual game itself. You got these endless queues, hidden fees, prices jump up on you at checkout. It's gross. That's why you got to check out Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to you. the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is actually what you pay. I love that peace of mind. And honestly, it's faster, it's cheaper, and oh my goodness, it's less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. And the other thing is I love that you can see the views from your seat right there in the app when you're buying tickets. JJ, how about this? Zone deals from Game Time for this game tomorrow as cheap as $31, which I guess is a sign of Carolina having a rough year.
Get in and get there. Yeah.
Right? No reason not to. Drive over from Durham if you're a Blue Devils fan. Come on in. Walk over if you're right there on campus. Be great. Go get tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today.
Welcome back in. It's a Locked On College crossover. JJ Jackson here with Isaac Schade. It's Locked On Blue Devils and Locked On Tar Heels as we're getting set for the finest rivalry in college sports, regardless of sports. We love the basketball meetings between these two teams, but let's give football some love, and let's now turn our attention to the team in Chapel Hill, the North Carolina Tar Heels, led by head coach Bill Belichick. Isaac, it's still strange for so many people, and particularly Duke, going into a matchup like this against Bill Belichick. Take us back to Labor Day, man. Labor Day Monday, opening weekend of the season, like reality set in that day. That, wait a minute, this is actually happening. Bill Belichick is coaching in the ACC. He's coaching at North Carolina.
Well, and JJ, I think then I have to take you to the other reality that set in, because Sonny Dykes and TCU were like, hey, guess what? We're part of this game too, and we are going to abolish you, as so many teams have this year, before North Carolina kind of found themselves after Clemson dropped like 28 on them in the first quarter, had a week off, and they've been much better since, although that's a relative term compared to what Carolina's trying to figure out this year. But JJ, to your point, it is still so surreal to just see North Carolina talked about all the time, just simply because of the Bill Belichick of it all. I've said a lot this season that I don't think I ever truly appreciated in his Patriots days, just what a like cultural phenomenon Bill Belichick is. Partly because his teams were always so good, partly because he's such an enigma, partly now because of the age gap between he and Jordan Hudson. And so it's just been an odd and surreal thing. We're getting close, about a month away or a month shy of when he was finally named as Carolina's head coach. I've told the story quite a few times. There was all the speculation for a couple weeks leading up to it. And literally the night before my family and I were flying to Orlando to go to Disney World for a few days, my family had never been. That was the night they announced it. And so I'm scrambling while I'm packing and recording shows to go, all this coverage on Bill Belichick officially now coming to Carolina. So I will always remember that night very vividly in my brain.
Well, and then you can tie it into this rivalry, right? Because it's the moment that Duke fans have certainly reminded me of in our comments throughout the week leading up to this game in particular. But press conference, let's introduce the guy. And Bill Belichick says, the first words, what was it? Beat Duke?
That's right.
Already on the mind.
Which is a sign that this man knows his audience very well. Right? But from all the stories of the history and his dad being around in Chapel Hill, it's a man, what has truly impressed me about Belichick is the man just knows football inside and out, upside and down. I feel like, it's that classic, he's forgotten more about football than probably you or I will ever know, and many other people. I mean, it's just his respect for and love of, make fun of the Jordan Hudson side of things all you want. What I love and appreciate, just even as a football fan generally, is how much knowledge he has about the X's and O's of this game, the history of it, the respect he has for that side of it's been really cool to see.
All right, so let's get into it. Let's get into the season so far. You mentioned that opener on Labor Day where TCU got a big final score on North Carolina, 48-14. I will say there was a moment of panic from the rest of the college football world when North Carolina scores a touchdown on the very first drive of the season, forces an immediate 3-and-out, and it's like, oh my goodness, of course it's going to work. It's Bill Belichick on the sidelines. that lasted for that. And then it was on to kind of the Tar Heels that we've seen as of late. 2 conference wins already, 2 conference games where they lost by just 1 possession. What have we learned about North Carolina in this recent stretch of ACC play?
The funny thing is, JJ, the next time that North Carolina had a lead on on a high major opponent, like a Power 4 opponent after that, was Game 7 against Virginia. That's how big the gap was. I mean, it's been crazy. And it's wild because, you know, I mentioned coming out of that that Clemson game. After that, North Carolina played at Cal, lost with a fumble at the goal line, going in to score with a couple minutes left in the game. That's not a guaranteed victory, but you've taken a lead with like 2 minutes to go.
Yep.
The next week, Carolina loses to Virginia in overtime by an inch as the ball can't quite hit the pylon. Carolina's going for 2. And then they win the next 2 games at Syracuse, who didn't have a quarterback basically that game. So you understand that. Plus it was Halloween night. And then Carolina wins at home against Stanford by 5, right? Like, you should obliterate Stanford. Last week goes to Wake, and it was like everything was kind of exposed again. But it is interesting. Like, if Carolina wins in the way they probably should have against at Cal and Virginia, like a couple inches the other way, this team would, similar to what you said about Duke and bowl eligibility, this team could just as easily be 6-4 as they are at 4-6 right now. And so that's kind of the weirdness of it, Jay.
So the big games here for North Carolina down the stretch, you just mentioned Wake Forest. Now it's Duke coming up on Saturday, and then, of course, NC State to end the year. Take me to these players to watch. Who are kind of the names, Isaac, you think that we need to be aware of in regards to North Carolina?
Well, for those watching on YouTube, can already see this, JJ, but I think it tells you a lot about this team. The fact that almost any players to watch list for almost any football team you would ever see is going to have the quarterback on it. This list does not.
Yeah.
And we can say more about that in a second. But let's start on the defensive side of the football, which is what really matters. At the bottom center of this screen is Melkart Abou-Jaoude. This dude, JJ, is 6th in the nation in sacks. He's leading the ACC with 10 sacks. Tyler Thompson, who I didn't put on this list, is 3rd in the ACC in sacks, just above VJ Anthony, by the way, with 7. Only SMU's Isaiah Smith separates them. And so, like, this is the strength of the Carolina unit. Unexpectedly, I thought the D-line was going to be a weakness heading into the season, but these guys have responded and pinned their ears back, and they're really doing a lot. And it's led by Melkart Abou-Jaoude, number 9 for Carolina, who comes in. So really like him. Kamori House is one of Carolina's linebackers, along with Andrew Simpson. Kamori House comes in from Washington, along with Steve Belichick, Coach Belichick's son, who's the defensive coordinator. He leads Carolina in tackles and has just been, like, in a lot of ways, you know, the heart and soul of that defense, leading it in that regard. He's been the leading tackler several weeks in a row, and that's good. Obviously, Carolina loses Omarion Hampton to the NFL. The guy that has stepped in and kind of filled the gap the most has been true freshman Demon Juju June. It's spelled like demon, but it's pronounced Demon. This guy has seemingly been the best, but if anybody remembers, like, Bill Belichick, Patriots Bill Belichick, if you play fantasy football, you would never draft the Patriots running back under Bill Belichick because it was like a revolving door. If you remember that, that's what it is again in Chapel Hill this year. And so it's like Demon June is the best of the running backs, but you never know from week to week who's going to be the bell cow, but he is the best one. And so that's kind of the 3 players to watch for me in this game, JJ.
Yeah, make note of that, Duke fans, for sure. These are standout guys in their own right, expected to make big plays for North Carolina in this one against Duke. So before we head to our next timeout, Isaac, here on the program today, we do have to get to the quarterback of it all. That is, last time you and I checked, a very important position in the sport. And looking at it, you've got a pair of left-handed quarterbacks, which I'm a big fan of. But what's kind of the breakdown here of Gio Lopez and Max Johnson?
Gio Lopez came to North Carolina after spring practice, came from South Alabama, a little lefty that a lot of, you heard all this talk coming in about him being this dual threat quarterback that could make some throws, that would scramble a little bit. And Carolina fans were used to that. Kind of like Drake May was never really tabbed as like a true dual threat. But JJ, I mean, as well as like America now, because they're seeing it, funny enough, in New England, that Drake May could do both of those things.
Yep.
Gio Lopez has not been a very good throwing quarterback, if we can just be frank and honest about that. There are not many explosive plays, can't get the ball downfield accurately. A lot of the throws are short of the sticks, all of that kind of stuff. And so it's like, all right, well, the good news is he's a dual threat quarterback. We saw that at South Alabama, so let's see that. There just hasn't been much of it. I don't know if it's out of trying to protect him or they don't think his slider frame can handle it at the ACC level. But for whatever reason, it's just not been there. And as Bryn Renner, former Carolina quarterback, who is, does a lot of the color on the Carolina radio broadcast, has said, is we just simply have to get better play from the quarterback position. JJ, I have been begging Carolina since the game 1 loss to TCU to give Max Johnson a shot. What a cool story he is. He suffered a bad leg injury the first game last season against Minnesota. And he did start one game. I think it was the Clemson game. And then, and part of that was Gio Lopez being banged up, honestly. And they never gave him a shot again. And I don't know if I would call it stubbornly sticking with Gio Lopez, but Lopez, not only it's like less than game manager, right? Like we often said that about Alabama quarterbacks in the Nick Saban era. It's like he's not even to that level, JJ. And so that's the confusion, is like, if he's not giving your team a chance to win, go with Max Johnson, or I don't know, your highly recruited freshman Bryce Baker, who is a dude. Like, either they're just trying to maintain every ounce of redshirt capability they can, but at this point you only got 2 games left, so why not throw him in? Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me, JJ.
Well, we will see how it all unfolds offensively for North Carolina come Saturday when that takes place. So we've got a few more major game storylines. Again, it's going to be a good one tomorrow, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on the ACC Network. We'll step aside one quick timeout here on the Locked On College Crossover. The show continues here in just a moment. All right, got to let you know that today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. This hasn't changed yet, folks. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. We want to dive into this game in particular, Duke and North Carolina from Chapel Hill. Right now, according to our friends over at FanDuel, the Blue Devils, 6.5-point road favorites over North Carolina. Are over under total 51.5. Should be a very fun and exciting game for these two teams. Also on FanDuel right now, we know that basketball is off and running. The NBA is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Right now, new customers with FanDuel getting $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up, and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and a proud sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network.
All right, guys, we're back. We're going to get some big storylines, make predictions for this football game, the penultimate football game of the regular season. JJ and the Blue.
Go ahead, I want to start there, Isaac, because I'm glad you brought this up. It has always bothered me the last several years how early in the season this football game was played, right? Like 2 years ago, it was the very first conference game for both teams. And what are we doing in that sense? So I am so excited that this is once again here at the end of the season. UNC ends the year officially with NC State. Duke ends it with Wake Forest. I'd love for it to even be moved back and kind of make this a Thanksgiving weekend thing between these two teams. But this, Isaac, that's where I had to start storyline-wise, is that a rivalry as good as this, thank you for moving it later into the season, ACC.
What's been cool on the Carolina side of it, JJ, is that North Carolina is playing all 3 ACC North Carolina schools in the final 3 games. We mentioned it earlier, but at Wake last week, at home against Duke this week, and at NC State to wrap the regular season. And what I like for Duke is that it's Carolina and then Wake, but not to put too fine a point on it, but NC State was the first ACC game for Duke. Let's get that one down here, and let's just have a round robin the final 3 games of the season. Man, I think that'd be incredible.
Yeah, there are real bragging rights in the state as to who wins these games, and that team in Durham did knock off all 3 other schools last season. Duke still has that opportunity in front of them as we head into this one. But that was certainly where I had to start, right? I mean, everybody wants to talk Bill Belichick in the rivalry game. I talked about the beat Duke thing that I've seen circulating all week long once again, because what a way to win the moment. What a way to win the press conference. But I'm just fired up that it's back here at the end of the year.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It makes a ton of sense. And it's cool because, fans who are so much more passionate about the basketball side might not realize that it's kind of interesting on the football side where the Carolina NC State rivalry is a little stronger than it is in basketball. I think State fans are trying to make that bigger in basketball with getting Will Wade in and all that, which I think is ultimately good for the conference, right, JJ, and good for basketball in the state, right? Like, there's a real world, although Louisville is phenomenal, but Duke, Carolina, NC State probably all finish in top, maybe all get a double bye in the ACC tournament this year. So that'd be great. But I love the football side of it too, where it's just elevated and it's a lot of fun to see. And so that's going to be a lot of fun.
I think postseason as well, when we look at both of these teams, certainly pressure that you're starting to feel at this point of the year. One of the reasons we'd love to see it later in the schedule is in years to come. Hopefully these teams are still vying for a conference championship, and a game like this could mean something there. Now we've got the opposite, right? Where North Carolina has got to win these last two games of the season. Duke has to win one of the two. It's been a crazy 180 for the Blue Devils, where a week ago you feel like you can win this thing. Now you're sitting here worried that all of a sudden with two losses, you're not even going to make a bowl game. These teams in the rivalry have a major opportunity to play spoiler and ending kind of the postseason hopes for their rival.
Yeah, it really is weird, JJ, because as you said, the Georgia Tech loss, very understandable, right? That makes sense. I know Georgia Tech's been trending down a little bit lately, but you can kind of live with that based on what they've been doing this year. But I know for Duke fans, the UConn game in particular, that's so, I remember feeling gosh, that's got to be so frustrating for Duke when that game happened. But then it's all right, well, get it back next week. Let's beat Virginia. Yes, they're ranked in the teens, but they're not that good.
Yeah.
But then they double up Duke, and that didn't make any sense. And so now, as you said, it's got to win our rivalry game on the road or beat Wake at home. And, just who knows what that'll be. They've looked good at times this year and not as good. And then for Carolina, same thing. It's you miss big opportunities, a win at Cal, and then a win at home against Virginia, and you're already bowl eligible. So it's both teams have, unfortunately, Jay, put themselves in this position where now they're desperate. And as you said, for Carolina, it's not win 1 out of 2. It's, gosh, for the NC State game to even matter for more than respect of beating NC State, you got to get this one at home. But as you said earlier in the ad read, this is a 6.5 point spread where JJ, like I said, the Carolina defense has looked a lot better. The D-line has made life hard for opposing teams. But last week, they did not exert themselves at the same level against Wake Forest that they had in the previous 4 games. And so is it more of that, or is it, hey, they're big mad because of that, and now we're going to see a reassertion of it? But part of it is Carolina has been without their best secondary player, Thad Dixon, for a long time now, since the Clemson game, if I remember correctly. And there's speculation that he might be back, but if the D-line can't get home, I think Darian Mensah might be able to pick on that secondary a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. You talk injured secondary, and Darian Mensah and that offensive room's licking their chops, Isaac. They're ready to, they're let's get to work. Let's make things happen. Unfortunately, the overwhelming majority of both of these fan bases have fully moved on to basketball season.
100%.
Like you said, right? And that's always been the case with both of these schools.
Even in good years.
Right. In some respects, Isaac, with it being here at the end of the year, it's okay, let's get these games out of the way so it can kind of go back into the rearview mirror. We can fully focus on what's setting up to be a really exciting season on the hardwood and what we're expecting to be 2 incredible matchups between Hubert Davis and John Shire's teams.
Yeah, and especially heading into Feast Week, that's the other part of it, where it's man, everybody's getting excited for that and everything that's going to happen. And so, I know that's a big part of it. I know for Duke, it's coming up with Arkansas and then Florida and Michigan State all back to back to back. So that's going to be crazy. Carolina has Michigan State, and then at Kentucky in the ACC, SEC. And so we're going to learn a lot about both of those teams. But yeah, it's like, can we focus on that for just a second to focus in on these final 2 games of the regular season? Hopefully, for us, both teams going to bowl eligibility. But for Duke, that would mean having to lose to Carolina and then beat Wake. And for Carolina, that would mean having to beat Duke and NC State. Obviously, Duke fans would love to beat North Carolina and stop them from getting to it. So it's a whole mess, man.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm all for it, except the part where Duke's got to lose this this football game, excuse me. And here you and I, just for everydayers to be well aware of, we're part of the problem as well, right? Everybody else moving on to basketball with these 2 teams, and you and I can, guilty as charged with that as well, because we certainly do love the round ball. But I'm expecting this to be a really fun and exciting football game. If anything, it is the rivalry. It is the best football coach of all time on the North Carolina sidelines that gets to make his imprint, whether that be good or bad for the Tar Heels in this rivalry game. The highest paid quarterback in the transfer portal gets to make his mark on this game as well. I mean, I'm going to be glued to the TV seeing how this one plays out, man.
I am too, JJ, and we'll be ready to go live with it afterwards. Duke fans, come join us, and you can hate watch all you want. I can take it. I have thick skin. I'm ready for it. Bring it on.
This has been awesome.
JJ, 6.5 point spread in this thing, as you said. Well, how do you see it playing out? What's your prediction for the game?
I do think that Duke is going to find a way to get back in the win column after disappointing losses to UConn and to Virginia, and finally get their 6th win of the season to assure that there will be a postseason game played in the bowl fashion for the Blue Devils. And the way the offense has been clicking, I do think 6.5 is steep here, Isaac. But I think Duke can cover here. I've got this one being the makings of kind of a 35-24 type game with these 2 teams is where I would put it in.
Okay, I love it. What's interesting is I had the same score for North Carolina, but 2 touchdowns fewer for Duke. I'm banking on that Carolina defense to rebound a little bit from last week at Wake on the road, just kind of ride the momentum of being back home in a rivalry game. 21-21, 3 touchdowns each. Reese Verhoff field goal as time expires to send Carolina home a champion in this game. That's what I'm looking for. Carolina to not only cover, but win straight up. But come on, JJ, it's like I can't pick Carolina to lose to Duke. That would be malfeasance of me as a host. What are we doing?
I mean, if people ran back the all-time history of our crossovers, they'd never really find evidence of us picking against our squads. And
nor should they, JJ. Nor should they.
I don't want to give any spoilers out there, but in this match, you're never going to find evidence of me going in the Tar Heels' favor over Duke. When there's a will, there's a way, and I will find a way.
100%. Yeah. And it's because there's so much. What I love is there's so much mutual respect. Like, it's not like the Carolina NC State rivalry is like, I feel like it's just like, now, baby, now we got bad blood, right? Like, we got some Taylor Swift and that. With Duke and Carolina, it's more like, I respect you, I see you, and I want to beat the crap out of you, Yeah.
Yep. I'm right there with you, man. This is going to be awesome. We're going to be tuned in again tomorrow, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on the ACC Network. Thank you to all of the everydayers for your support. Make sure that you subscribe to our audio podcasting feeds. Leave us 5-star ratings and written reviews. Subscribe to our YouTube channels, and be sure to follow us along the way for everything you need to know in the world of Duke athletics and North Carolina Tar Heels athletics right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. As Isaac Schade always says, we'll send you out with this, man. Peace.